Where did they come from? Where did they go? We'll find out. Where are they now? Good evening again, ladies and gentlemen. Today we have an amazing special guest. We have somebody that is absolutely known by every Australian known man that has ever watched television or been related to music, Mr. Mark Holden. Before we get to asking Mark all the hard questions, what I'm going to do is read through a bit of a profile, but let me tell you, he's had a very long and successful career, so this is going to take me a minute to get through. Let's jump into this. Mark Ronald Holden, born the 27th of April, 1954, to Helen and Ron Holden at the Cavalry Hospital in North Adelaide. His father's family were involved in the Holden and Sloggett's travelling circus. We'll touch on that a little bit later, but Ron later became an architect and Helen was a teacher. In the mid-1960s, Holden became involved in music after inheriting a guitar from his older brother, Craig. Holden attended Westminster School in Adelaide and formed a school band. He later enrolled in the University of Adelaide, where he studied law for 3 years. In 1972, Holden was encouraged by a neighbour to audition for Adelaide Tonight, a local television show hosted by the famous Ernie Sigley. Holden attended the audition in North Adelaide singing an original song, I'll Walk With God, where he was successful and performed on the show a number of times after that. Mark's music career beginning in 1974, Holden entered a Showcase 74, a television show which was a talent one on Network 9, where he sang original folky songs, and he ultimately placed 5th. Now, as we've seen on Australian Idol over the years, you don't have to win it to be successful, and John Bromwell from Essex Music encouraged Holden to relocate to Sydney and arrange a meeting with Peter Dawkins, a record producer with EMI Music, in which Holden signed with. His debut album, Dawn in Darkness, was released in 1975, in which Holden wrote or co-wrote all the tracks. From 75 to 76, Holden also performed as Joseph in the first Australian production of Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat at the Seymour Centre, Sydney. He was the first pop star in the world to play the lead role. In 1976, Holden later released a cover of Eric Carmen's Never Gonna Fall in Love Again. The song became an instant hit, peaking at number 13 on the Australian Music Report. He released I Want to Make You a Lady in August and Last Romance in November, which both peaked at number 11. Holden issued his second studio album, Let Me Love You, at the TV Week King Awards, where he won Most Popular New Talent. In 1977, Holden released Hey My Love in February, which peaked at number 32, and Reach Out for the One Who Loves You in August, which peaked at number 17. His third album, Encounter, was released in 1977. Both Let Me Love You and Encounter were both certified double gold for shipment for 50,000 sales of copies. In 1976, Holden played the role of Greg Mason on the TV soap opera show The Young Doctors. In 1977, he starred in Blue Fire Lady and Newsfront, and Reach for the Stars and Case for Defence in 1978. At the Logie Awards in 1977, Holden won Most Popular TV Teenage Personality and Best New Talent. He also won Most Popular Australian TV Teenage Personality again in 1978. Music producing in Los Angeles. Moving forward, Holden focused on becoming a songwriter and a music producer. He formed a company called Multimedia with Anthony Curtis and Dan Wilson, and over the next decade co-wrote 2 top 10 hits on the hot R&B and hip-hop songs for The Temptations, Lady Soul, which happened in June 1986, and Look What You Started in 1987. There were also many hits with Tracy Spencer, Joey Lawrence, Will Downing, and a number 1 dance hit with Casey Sledge, and over 50 recordings of his songs from artists which varied from Belinda Carlisle, Steve Jones of the Sex Pistols, the Manhattans, Danny Osmond, Fleetwood Mac, and even managed to get David Hasselhoff in there somewhere. I can see you smiling there, Mark, while I'm reading through this amazing career. He also developed artists including Calvin Klein model and film star Mila Jovovich. For 3 years between 1992 and 95, Holden worked with David Hasselhoff, producing and coordinating his albums, live promotion, musical projects for television, particularly in Europe, where David enjoyed a multi-platinum success, including a top 10 hits in Germany, Austria, and Switzerland, which Mark co-wrote with David on all of these. Mark, you've been pretty busy so far, and I'm only halfway through your bio. This is amazing. In 1995, Holden's second child, Katie, was born. Amid the rising violence in Los Angeles in the 1990s, Holden and his partner Anna decided to move back to sunny Australia in September 1996. Now let's talk about Idol and the X Factor in 1996. Holden recommenced his law degree, and in 1997 was keen to get back into the music business where he belonged. He teamed with Jack Strom, who he knew from his early 1970s and was the producer on Red Faces on Hey Hey It's Saturday. The pair listened to a number of demos before visiting a Russian restaurant in Carnegie where they met a 15-year-old Vanessa Amorosi. They signed her and launched her career in 1999. She also has just become a household name. Amorosi debuted The Power, that peaked at #1 and was certified 4 times platinum in Australia. At the APRA Music Awards in 2001, Amorosi's Shine won Most Performed Australian Works, in which Holden also co-wrote. Strom and Holden formed Marjack Productions and wrote songs and helped launch other careers of well-known artists, including Delta Goodrem, Nikki Webster, and Sophie Monk. In 1999, Holden performed his show 100 Years of Australian Music at the School of Arts Cafe in Queanbeyan and hosted the Silver Jubilee edition of Countdown. In 2002, Holden was honoured by This Is Your Life. In 2003, Holden was a judge on the inaugural season of Australian Idol, where he remained for 5 seasons until 2007. Holden executive produced the final 12-cast CD for Australian Idol, which went double platinum and included songs such as Rise Up, which he co-wrote with Vanessa Amorosi, which peaked again at #1 on the ARIA charts. His phrase, touchdown, which I think you've probably become very famous for, became the highest of the accolades for a contestant. Cosima DeVito received the first touchdown with their rendition of Cold Chisels When the War Is Over. It was very well received, and the public loved Mark's touchdown. In 2004, Holden signed and managed Joel Turner, a beatboxer from Idol, credited to Joel Turner and the Modern Day Poets. Their first single, These Kids, reached #1 again on the ARIA charts and achieved double platinum status. In 2005, Holden appeared as a judge in the first season of X Factor, along with John Reid and Kate Sobrano. The R&B group he mentored during the show, Random, went on to win, becoming the first group anywhere in the world to do so. From January to May 2008, Holden played the role of Johnny O'Keefe's manager, Lee Gordon, in Shout. I went and seen that. That was fantastic. And Holden had a cancer removed from his neck, which affected his vocal cords. In 2010, he guest starred as Dr. Wallace in season 5 of Star Patrol, which aired on July 2011. From 2010 and 11, he was a fill-in presenter on the weekday afternoon show in South Australia on 891 ABC Adelaide, where his focus redirected back to his musical discussion. Holden appeared on Celebrity Come Dine With Me in Australia in 2014, and on the 28th of August 2014, it was announced Holden would be a participant in the 14th season of Dancing with the Stars, commencing in September. We're nearly there, Mark. In 2017, Holden released his autobiography titled My Years, which we'll talk about today. And in September 2020, Holden and his daughter Katie commenced releasing the Idol Archives podcast, which sees the duo chat to former Idol contestants and their memories behind this. In his personal life, Holden became a father at the age of 20. His son Kane was born in 1974, and Holden's second child, Katie, was born in 1995. He graduated with a Bachelor of Laws from the University of Adelaide in 2001, which he completed externally at Monash University. He was close to completing his degree in 1974, where his music career took off. And in November 2009, he signed with the Victorian Bar Roll Reading with barrister William Lyle and is now practicing full-time at the Victorian Bar. He has suffered several bone fractures as a result of osteoporosis, and featured on the awareness ads on Channel 7. He's also suffered from thyroid cancer in 2010. He's a long-time supporter of the Adelaide Football Club, and we won't hold that against him. And he was made an ambassador of the club in 2006. Welcome to the show, Mark Holden. Thank you for coming on.
Wow, I mean, that's the most thorough outline that I've ever heard, full stop. And most of it, I think, was true, you know.
It is a long career, Mark. You must hear that at times, and I'm sure you probably haven't heard it as thorough as that for a
No,
while.
I haven't. No, I haven't.
When I was doing my research, I mean, everyone knows who Mark Holden is, but to really read how successful.
Well, but when you go back to right to the start, and you remember Ernie Sigley, and you remember, you know, Adelaide Tonight. It was a bizarre time. That was like '72, and at that time, every city, but not only every city, but every smaller city, had their own Tonight Show. So Ballarat had its own Tonight Show.
Wow.
And you know, the different regions would all have their own Tonight Show, and it was, you know, and actually it was my next door neighbour over the back fence worked for Telethon at Channel 9, and she was kind of my second mum, Mrs. Mage, and she's barely alive still, but she said, "Hey, you should come down and audition for him," and that was really the kickoff, you know. And Ernie took, when he went to Melbourne, firstly it was just Melbourne and Adelaide that did Ernie's show. It wasn't even national.
Wow.
And then eventually it sort of became national, but not really, because Sydney came on board. But Sydney had its own one, which was different as well. So it was a bizarre time. But Ernie gave me a really big leg up, and I love Ernie, and he's also demented. You know, some of my best friends are demented, and you know, I'm one of them.
Well, we're all going to end up there at some stage, I suppose.
Yeah, that's right. If we're lucky.
If we're lucky, we got to look at the opportunities that come from everything you've done. Now, I mean, typically when you assess someone on their career, you have a look at what they achieved, you know, as Mark Holden. But when you really dip down into your career, and you know, I've spoken to a lot of guys recently getting this first season ready. Everyone knows who you are, and it seems everyone's had some involvement with you. And when I've added a lot of these guys onto my Facebook, you're co-friends with so many of these people or been involved in them. Tell me about Vanessa Amorosi, because she came from, it seemed nowhere. Reading that she was 15. You guys have discovered.
Yeah, she was singing in as you said correctly, in a Russian restaurant, and so from about the age of 12, she was making a living. You know, she was probably earning, you know, at 12, you know, $500-600 a week. You know, and that would have been cash money. And you know, of course, her mother took it, and Vanessa didn't actually get any of that.
But that's sad.
But she was contributing to the family's survival from the age of 12. You know.
Oh my God.
And so she was, you know, having just left America at that time. You know, and as you correctly put, you know, I had those two guys that you talked about. I had a management company with a guy called Anthony Curtis, who was in Frankie Lyman and the Teenagers as a young man, and he was working for Earth, Wind and Fire when I met him. He was running their production company, and so I went into business with him, and a African American lawyer who worked for Quest Records. And we found these when I was the one actually who went into Watts and Compton and hung out in the studios and listened to who was making the beats, and you know, it was an extraordinary time, and not many white boys would do that. And you know, I was going into Watson Compton, but I was fearless. I just for whatever reason I wasn't afraid. But I watched just recently the LA riots film that's on Netflix from '92, or whenever it was, 92 maybe, yeah. And you know, there was a liquor store there called, I think it's called Dave's Liquor Store, on the corner of Florence and Normandy in Compton, or in Watts rather. And that literal liquor store was the liquor store I would go to, because in those days they didn't have a mobile phone. So, you know, because they would never answer the door, and the studio was all the way out the back. And so they wouldn't answer the door. So I couldn't get in. I'm just trying to, you know, I'm there. So I'd go down to the liquor store and I'd, you know, call the phone and hope somebody would pick up, and then they'd let me in. Well, that liquor store is literally where Reginald Denny was pulled. If you've seen that footage, which started the LA riots, where Reginald Denny was pulled out of his truck at a stoplight, and his head was bashed in on that corner by, you know, and then he was kicked by 3 or 4 black dudes right on that corner, and that was the start of the riot. And I was literally there, you know, at least once a week.
Wow.
And you know, occasionally, you know, because I had a little briefcase that my mother gave me as a kind of a it's time for you to be a businessman mark thing, you know. And I had this little briefcase with my cassettes and stuff in it. And I must have looked like a drug dealer, you know. I mean, there was literally a light above my head, you know, if it was at night, because this was the, you know, the phone box, and I'm there trying to find quarters to stick in it. And one night, the helicopter put its light on me, because I'm sure and I got into I had a little Honda Accord, and I drove back to the freeway, and the cop and the light followed me the whole way. I guess they thought, you know, they must have thought I was a drug dealer. Why else would I be there? You know, really.
You're probably lucky it wasn't you getting your head kicked in, because I've been through there. It's not a good place.
No. But the irony is that you know, one street will be just like any other street in LA, except there's black families living there. But the next street was you know, just like crack house. There was some crack house or something or other, and they were trashed. And if you found yourself down one of those streets, you know, you were, you know, going to be in trouble. But where I was the guy that had it was his father's house, and he put the studio out the back, and he just invited anybody from the neighborhood who was interested in music to come by. So I got to see some of the most fantastic young beat makers, and I signed some of them, and then we managed them, and we moved them from Watts and Compton to, you know, Burbank, you know.
Wow.
And stuck them in an apartment in Burbank and paid their rent, and they started to bang out the beats, and I'm still friends with them, you know. I mean, I'm still buddies with those guys.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's a different place, differently for music. You would have come back to Australia, and there's such a big contrast between the two.
Yeah, but the point that led me there was that when I heard Vanessa, you know, I'd been hearing the Temptations. You know, I mean, I'd been in the room making records with the Temptations with
That's
my
unbelievable.
So I've heard them sing, you know, and I've heard the lead singer at that time was a guy called Ali Ollie Woodson. And I got to hear Ali Ollie Woodson do 2 passes of my song, having just been in the car doing crack.
Wow.
You know?
Oh my God.
Seriously.
That's fair dinkum.
Yeah, and I've heard Gladys Knight, and you know, I mean, so I mean, when I heard Vanessa, I went, wow, that girl's as good as them. This 15-year-old girl in Melbourne, I knew immediately what I was hearing. I was hearing this extraordinary singer, and she is an extraordinary singer. She's just an incredible singer, and she sings with such incredible feeling, and she just has there's some people that you know. I love Glenn Shorrock, you know. I mean, there's just some people just have a voice that you just want to listen to, you know,
and unique, and you just can't get away from it. It's quite seductive, isn't it? It draws you in pretty solid. I have around about 15 questions, and I've got 3 fan questions. I've limited it to 3 because we had quite good input. But let me ask you firstly, tell me what you've liked and then disliked about your career. You know, what's been a real high point and maybe a real low point in the career?
Oh, well, I think the high point for me, probably looking back on my whole time, I've had many high points, but the real cornerstone uh, life making moment was 1984, when I had been dropped, and I had been a pop star in Australia, and I 1982, I was looking at either coming back to Australia or what was I going to do, and I was fortunate to get a green card, so I could stay, and I meditated for a year, and I wrote my dreams down every single day for a year, and basically didn't do anything. I sold my property that I owned in Australia, and made $1.17 for every dollar. That was extraordinary. The Australian dollar was $1.17. How about that?
Wow,
Yeah.
jeepers.
And lived off that because I wasn't earning any money, obviously. And at the end of that time, I kind of looked into myself, and came to a couple of conclusions about how I would live my life. And one of them was that I would be a songwriter. And at exactly that moment, because I'd never written a hit song before that, I'd had hit records, but none of them were my songs. And at that moment, this whole chorus came into my spirit, and I had a little TAC 8 track that I just bought,
Oh, wow.
and I laid down this chords, and a little 808 little beat, and layered the vocals on, and created a verse. And of course, I wrote the song entirely on my own, which I rarely did at that time. I always had a collaborator, but this one I just wrote entirely on my own, and made the demo myself, and just out of sheer luck, or what I would call synchronicity, just the universe all coming together at one moment for a moment. I met these two guys, called Rick Bonetta and Pete Chadikoff, who were about to produce an album on the Temptations,
Wow.
and I gave them my demo, and they played it to Berry Gordy, and Berry Gordy said, "Yep." And now that song is on Motown Greatest Hits collection, and I don't know. I think I might be the only Australian that would be on the Motown Greatest Hits.
Wow. What's the song called, Mark?
Or Lady Soul.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah. And
you know,
it got to number 4, and on the R&B charts, and I got to drive around LA listening. I listened to R&B radio anyway in those days, and hear my song on the radio. It was fantastic.
oh, what a buzz that must be. And even
Oh, it was
today to
incredible.
still know.
But it's also such an exquisite version too. I mean, it's just the most beautifully made record. And like I said, Ali Ollie Woodson just came in and did 2 passes, and he was bleeding with pain and beauty, and just exquisite sound, and everything about it was just unbelievable. So it was just one of those moments where the universe opens up, and blesses you, and that changed my life, because I suddenly had the confidence that I could write a hit.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you didn't seem to struggle after that because
No,
they just
no, no,
kept
I didn't.
coming.
I didn't. It certainly it's been my core thing. Writing has been the core of everything I've done, except for being a barrister, of course. But even then, write a different kind of writing. But no, writing has always been at the core of. I do all the other things, the management and all that, just so that I can make the records happen. You know.
Wow. It's a very competitive industry.
Yeah.
I've got Daniel James and Mick Thomas on early next week to finish the series off. And I was going through Mick Thomas through Wedding Parties, Anything's career, and the
Mhm.
amount of bands you've got to be in, the amount of recordings you've got to do,
Yeah.
and there's no guarantee you get anywhere. It's a tough gig.
Yeah, it's the yeah. Well, that's why I love musicians and actors and songwriters and creators, because they just cast their lot into the breeze, and while their contemporaries are working and earning a living and having weekends and having holidays and buying apartments and houses, they are kind of floating on this sea where they might get lucky and they might make a living, or they might. I mean, this last year has shown us that musicians, particularly musicians, have just been decimated. Anyone who, but not just the musicians, the guys who do the sound and the guys who do the lighting and all the little ecosystem around live performance has just been decimated, and it's not going to change anytime soon because you know it's
We're
just
in it for a while.
suddenly Brisbane, everyone's going Queensland's not is cool, but then suddenly Brisbane's got
Today, shut down for
yeah,
3
right.
days.
So this is the nature of how it's going to be for at least for this year. So musicians will end up of having 2 years of utter destruction to their savings, to their well-being, all of that. It's a highly risky enterprise to be a creator
At the best of times, never alone in a
at the best of
pandemic.
time.
I was
Correct.
speaking to Paul Mercurio yesterday, and he was telling me he hasn't earned a dime from his craft since March last year.
Yeah, well, dancing is, of course, you've got to do it with people. So yeah, that's right.
It's a tough gig. What's a low point, Mark? If you look back on your career, what's something where you've just gone, "Oh my God, where am I going here?"
Low points. Well, I mean, I guess the biggest kick was being fired by Idol. That was a kick in the teeth, and that knocked me around for a good year, I would say, where I just sort of reeled and readjusted. We went to America straight after that, and 1 minute I'm on the set of Idol and I'm a centerpiece of it,
Yeah.
and the next minute I'm back with the Hoff and he's doing America's Got Talent, and he's the guy up on the thing, and I'm back again to being his mate at the side. It was a very bizarre moment, that one.
Yeah.
It was a very bizarre moment. Because I went into the show with him, and he was doing it with Sharon Osbourne, and I guess what's his name, the bloke, and it was just bizarre having been that guy on the chair.
Yeah.
A few months before.
But you were arguably the centerpiece of that show. Touchdown was famous. I mean,
yeah, look, it gave me a kick in the teeth. But I'll tell you what it did do, which was in the end positive. Well, for a start, they paid me for 2 years because they had an extended contract with me. So I worked. They gave me an entire year's very good pay to do nothing.
right.
Which in the fullness of time I have come to appreciate
For sure.
and value, and so that in some sense softened the blow. But more than that, it made me, because I was 55 then, and I could have retired then and gone away and just hidden, but I was, everybody that I knew that was my sort of older friends told me that I shouldn't stop now. I should do something. And the music business was history at that point. And I'd lost Vanessa, and I really wasn't in the music business anymore at that point. And the law had always been something that had been a kind of a what if situation, and again, just out of sheer luck or synchronicity, again, I happened to be lining up at the Optus store on Glen Huntly Road at 6 o'clock in the morning with my daughter to get her an iPhone when it first came out.
Yeah.
And next to me is this guy, William Lyon, his son. He's doing exactly the same thing. He's lining up with his kid to get him an iPhone. And we're standing out in the middle of July in the freezing cold Melbourne morning, waiting in line. And so we had tons of time to talk. And he was a barrister. And I had got my degree at that point. I had to do I had to do the legal service thing, which is 6 months, which I did. And then I was fortunate enough to get into the readers course, and I did 3 months of the readers course, and signed the bar roll. And so that was 2009, as you said, which sort of the end of 2009. But then 2010, I got this thyroid cancer, and it really took away my singing voice, and but I could still speak. So I was going into court with my bloody neck, up to the ear, and
Wow.
it gave me something to do to get out of bed and not feel sorry for myself. And I met some fantastic people at the bar, and so that kick in the teeth ultimately led me to have another life as as a barrister, and being a barrister is you can't incorporate. You have to be you don't work for anybody. So it absolutely suited me. You do a brief, and once it's done, it's done. And then you might have nothing for a couple
Yeah.
of weeks or something or other, and that suited me too. And most cases take years. And so there are things that you work on for 2 or 3 years, some of them.
Wow.
And so I loved that. And as I said, I've met some fantastic people. I had two incredible mentors, William Lai, who's now at QC, and Philip Priest, who's now in the Court of Appeals.
Mm.
He's a judge of the Court of Appeals, and both of those guys are still friends of mine to this day, and their families, and it's been it's been fantastic, and it gives me something that I've got to I just doing my continuing professional development at the moment online. It gives me something interesting to think about and stay up to date with, and keep my brain working. And
So you're still practicing then? You're still practicing
I'm
doing
still got my ticket. I haven't taken a brief for a while because I've been writing a book for the last year, and so I've just been full time writing a book at the moment. And but as I said, I'll keep my ticket again this year in case there's a couple of cases that I'm following that maybe I can get involved with at some point or not. I don't know, but I'm going to keep my ticket going. But as I said, I've been writing a book for the last year, so
And
that's
how's that
been
going?
I think I've done a first draft, and I'm now just sort of thinking about it, and I've shown it to just a couple of people, and there's one person that it's very important that they see it, um, and are with me on it. So I've got to deal with the stories, and make sure I'm careful with the stories. So there's a couple of people that I want to see it before I have another crack at it, maybe a second draft. But I love, again, it's back to writing. I mean,
It's your
it's
passion.
well, it's just it's something that you can do without anybody
Yeah.
and without an infrastructure, and you can just do it with your brain and a typewriter or a computer,
Yeah.
or a pencil.
Yeah.
Some people write it with a pencil and a paper. That I'm a computer person, but it's so it's something, and everything in the arts uh, starts with a story.
Yeah.
So that's nothing works if the story's no good.
What does Mark Holden do on his perfect day off? What's the ultimate day off for you? I'm not going to work today. I'm going to do
No,
something
I
I
mean,
want to do.
my ultimate day off is an entire day of footy.
Wow.
You know, you know all the when the season's full on and you've got a game every 2 hours on a Saturday and every 2 hours on a Sunday. That's
Yeah.
my happiest.
You're at peace. So obviously you have a passion for the Adelaide Football Club,
I do,
and,
yeah.
and I won't hold it against you too bad. I mean, you're an
Yeah,
Adelaide boy, so they'd love you. You're a patron of the club too
I
now, I
love.
understand.
I've been an ambassador for a long time now. I love the club. We're having a kind of a low time right now, but it's interesting because you're seeing them put it all together again, and that, and it's fun to kind of, I enjoy seeing the young ones coming through, and the new lot coming through. I enjoy that. That's a part of the business that I've always enjoyed seeing that, because
There are some similarities, aren't there?
there are, because there's a continuing renewal. There is a continuing renewal in every business, and just because people get born, and some people choose to be footballers, and some people choose to be musicians.
I've certainly been to Adelaide to watch the footy. As a Carlton supporter, I know all about rebuilding. We've been coming
Yes.
since 2000,
Yeah, yeah.
and I think we're nearly there.
You seem to have a disappointing year, but haven't you traded well? Haven't you got some?
We have. We've traded well. We've picked up a few good kids. We've got Eddie Betts back, which was really good for us, because I think he's really good for.
I can't tell you how much I love Eddie Betts.
Yeah.
We were up in Darwin in his last season for the Melbourne game that's up there, and it was we were right in his pocket. We were in the Eddie Betts pocket twice in the game, and just being right up close to him, it was just incredible watching him.
He's a magician.
He's just amazing. And then afterwards, with because there's a lot of Indigenous kids around at the Darwin game, and you're hearing all this language, and then Eddie is just like he's like a king or something. He's just got the most beautiful spirit. And he does have real magic about him. He does.
I was very happy to see we held on to him. And I see there's such a good home for him. He loves the Blues. He was.
Yeah, no, I think that's good. I do. I think that's good. And I guess the family wants to be in Melbourne or something. Yeah.
What advice would you give to someone who's perhaps going through art school now and says, I want to have a career in singing or producing or writing, whatever? What advice,
I've got two go-to things that I always say, and I always say them because I think that they're true in a lifetime. And one is that if you do something well enough, long enough, magically money finds you.
Yeah, love it.
And that's been a truth for me. I mean, there were times when I've been back here that, I'd be sitting in the front room, listening to Tex Morton songs and yodeling, and my American wife would be going, "What the fuck did I come to Australia for? He's yodeling." And it's just unbelievable. We've in America, maybe you could have yodeled and made some money. We're in Australia. What the hell are you yodeling for? And what's so I think that's a very truism. And the other truism is, and I think this is even more important: marry well.
Yeah. Probably not a good question for me. Done the divorce.
Marry well. Marry well. It's important. It's important. Well, to you, it would be just don't marry too many times, because unless you're no, seriously, because unless you are what's his name, the bloke Packer.
Yeah.
Unless you're Jamie Packer and you start with 4 million and then 4 billion and end up with 1 billion.
That's a good win.
Who cares? You started with 4. You started with 4. You ended with 1. Not bad. But for you, it may not be that same equation.
I assure you that equation is nothing like that. I mean, and it's good advice, because the industry can be hard, and no one plans for a pandemic, especially. And I've got so many friends in the industry that aren't able to gig and do all those things. And
if you can possibly marry a person who has a government job, you're cool.
Safe.
Safe.
Yeah, you're right.
You're safe. You're good. Victorian government, the Socialist Republic of Victoria. If you're in there, that's a lifetime situation. So that's, I'd say, every creator, find somebody who works for your not for the local council, for the local state government, and particularly a Labor one in Victoria.
Because you get paid pretty well on that one, and two, you're safe as houses.
You're safe as houses, because the Liberal Party will never ever get in in Victoria ever again.
I see a Tinder app from Mark Holden coming out for musicians looking to have some financial security through their life.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. I think that's the simple. I think that's the simple thing to do.
That is hilarious.
And then you can just, I have friends who spent an entire life doing that, and now they're both them and the partner. The partner's retired now. And the partner's still getting paid.
Oh my God! Yeah.
And the bloke is still doing nothing. He's playing his guitar occasionally.
I want one of these jobs. I've got, you can't see them because of the green screen. I've got half a dozen guitars and pianos and stuff behind me. No money in it for me.
No, of course not. But a beautiful way to spend your life.
And I think the only thing that stopped me from becoming a famous musician was the inability to sing, play guitar, or sound any good. But
no, I don't know. I don't think any of those things necessarily disqualify.
In that case, I should be rich. Tell me, what's a common myth about the music industry that you would debunk?
What's a common myth? I don't know. I don't know what the common myth is right now, because the music business is so diverse and global. It's the old record companies that, in my day, the record companies were the gatekeepers.
Yeah.
And you just couldn't get into the business except through them. And they had very, 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 very narrow views of what was acceptable.
Do you think the opportunity is better now?
Oh, much better now.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Anybody can do whatever the hell they please.
Like me.
And it's just a function of how well they're organized and how good their material is. And again, they find audiences. And then once they find audiences, they find ways to monetize it. And it's possible. I mean, I'm a big Rufus Wainwright fan. And Rufus has been doing on a Friday evening in Los Angeles in his house in Laurel Canyon. He does an hour of songs, and so I booked up. I've seen every one of them, and so I'm giving him $20 a week from Melbourne, and let's say he's got 5,000 of those people.
Yeah, he's making money.
And he's sitting he's paying a couple of guys probably, to get the sound and to have the TV part of it happening and all that. But, if he gets 10,000 people doing that,
yeah,
which he could, some people could.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So there's all kinds of new ways to do it that don't rely on the traditional record companies. So I would say, don't. The myth is that you need to have a record company. I don't know that you do.
Yeah, maybe not anymore. Let me ask you, who's been the most influential person in your life and or career?
Influential person.
A mentor or someone you've looked up to?
Well, I just described two that in the last 10 years, my two mentors at the bar, William Lyon, Philip Priest.
Yes.
I mean, both of them, I had no idea what I was doing. I literally had no idea what I was doing. I had a degree. But I had no idea. And I go, well, what do I do now? What do you do now? And I go, well, okay, I've done that. What do I do now? That's sort of what I would do it. And I'd go into Phil's chambers, and he was a QC at that time, and he's doing huge cases. And I'd sit there and I'd wait for him to get off the phone and go, Phil, I've got this thing. What do I do now? And that was fantastic. And they would tell me, well, you do blah, ding, 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 ding. Okay, cool. You read this case, blah, 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 whatever it is.
Must have been comforting.
Oh no, it was fantastic. It was fantastic. So I loved my time of with them, and to this day, I the Idle Archives thing. The Fremantle sent us a cease and desist letter, and William Lai is. Really, he's a QC, but he's really knowledgeable about trademarks and
tricky.
So I sort of drafted a letter and I said to William, can you give me a little bit more? And he gave me about 2 or 3 ideas, and slammed it back on him and haven't heard from him since.
Oh, good. So it's still going?
Yeah, it's still going. We'll do another series. We've done this first series, and we really enjoyed it with my daughter Katie, and it's been fantastic. She's here now. She moved back from LA, but she's working in LA from Melbourne.
Great.
She gets up at 3 and
Wow.
bangs out a day, and but she's safe here, and
Yeah.
my son was in the first riot. He was 18, 19 during the 92 riot, and he was living with us in LA, and he worked at the Jimmy Iovine's studio on the Charles Chaplin lot at A&M. He got a gig there. I mean, they loved him.
Wow.
And so he was driving. He was there when U2 made a record there. He was there when just all kinds of people where they were making records there. But that was right where the LA riots was. Around him there were buildings on fire and people shoot and people but people shooting. There were 62 people shot.
Wow.
During that because and what I learned from that doco on Netflix is that the Korean shop owners were who owned those a lot of those big shops were being told on the Korean language station on their equivalent of SBS that in America if people attack your property you can shoot them.
Wow.
So they were just
Just started crazy.
because they were getting looted and their stores being shot on fire. So they just go and start shooting, and he was right there on that thing, and then he lost heart then and came back to Australia, but and there was an earthquake as well. So those two things drove him back to Australia.
Probably good. Happy to be home with Dad. Mark, the three questions I'm going to give you from your fan base, one's a bit funny, and I like the question, so brace yourself. How cool is the Hoff? Is he as cool as he displays that he is in general?
Yes, he is. No, he's a fantastic bloke. I love David, and I mean, it's got to be tough for him in the last year because he's always traveling. He can never stand still, and he's traveling because he's making money too. Because he's always got something, a commercial or in some country because he's famous everywhere. And if it's not America, it's China or it's wherever.
Yeah.
So he's always on the move. So him not being able to travel as much this year would have been tough on him. And he's also got a new, beautiful young wife, I think number 4. And
has he got the $4 billion to start with, though, Mark?
No, he didn't. No, he blew a lot of his things on gambling. Really.
Yeah, I did see something on that. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's a great shame, but he needs to work, but he also loves to work. But he is a fantastic bloke. He is a fantastic bloke, and he's got a big heart, and but he's just one of those guys that will never stop. He's like my brother. My brother's like that. There's some guys that just don't ever stop. They're just always going.
That's most certainly me.
That's not me. I'm happy to sit on my ass and watch a couple of Netflix shows.
Yeah, no, that's not me, but that's great. I'm glad to hear he is that cool. When I seen the question, I was like, oh yeah, I want to know that too.
No, he's definitely that cool. He's definitely that cool.
The next question, which came through multiple times, is what happened to you on Idol? Because you were really the star of the show. You were the friendly, comforting guy.
I don't know what happened really. I got outplayed by Dicko, is the truth. Dicko was going back and forth from Channel 7. The Channel 7 thing didn't work out for him. He realized that he was kind of nothing without Idol, and he was able to. He had a way that I don't have to this day and never had. and I call them kind of hall walkers. You know, guys that can just walk down the hall and just see this bloke and that bloke, and then
Yeah.
go out with them after and have a beer and something else with them or whatever, you know, and they work the room. The work the room guys, and I'm not that guy. And plus, I'm not in. I had my one job I had in my life prior to being a barrister was 1 year in 94 or something, or 92 or 3 or something like that. I was given a job. I was offered a job to run set up a publishing company for a management company who managed the Bee Gees, Richard Marx,
Wow.
LA Guns, all these incredible people, and they occupied the 17th floor of the Motown building. And I had, you know, I'd never had a job ever, and I had an office. Yeah, fucking office. And I used to go, and you'd have to come in there twice a week on a Tuesday and a Friday. You'd have to come in at 7:30 in the morning, and because there'd be a whole team, because one was the management company, one was the publishing company, they had a record company, they had a touring company. You know, they were all these different entities that were separate entities. And twice a week at 7:30 in the morning, you'd sit in a big room, and the two bosses would, you know, grill you. And I got up for the first one, you know, okay, all right. Then there's a second one. That happens every fucking week. I mean, every bloody week. We've got to come in here at 7:30 in the morning and sit through this shit. And so what I would do was I would, because I work from home, I still do. I've only ever worked from home. And my wife and I have been in, you know, under the same walls since 1982, almost 24 hours a day. And I would get in there at 7:30, and or on a reg. The other days I'd get in there at 9 or 9:30, whenever you were supposed to, and I'd walk around and I'd make sure everybody sees me, because I'd do the whole square of the building, make sure everybody sees me. Then I'd walk down the fire escape and go home. And then about 4 or 4:30, I'd come back and I'd walk around so that everyone could see me, go in my office, see what anything was there, and then go home again. I just couldn't stand being around so many people all the time that I didn't like.
Wow.
I just didn't like most of them. There were people that the guy that ran the label. It just was he was so disgusting, and I'm just like, I don't even like these people, you know.
Very political industry in
Yeah,
some
but
aspects.
Dicko was a genius at that. You know, everybody loved him, and he would spend all day in everybody's office.
Wow.
And you know, and then afterwards too, you know. So he had them all in the palm of his hand.
Yeah.
And so they moved him back in and me out. They made the calculation that he was more important, and they just liked him more. They just liked him more, and he was probably cheaper than me too. I was pretty expensive.
Well, and rightly so. Did you invent the touchdown? Just out of curiosity.
I did, yeah. No, it was just something that just sort of erupted one night because the rugby was on, and you know, it was the World Cup, and it was that guy that was really a great kicker, or whatever they call him in rugby, Wilkinson.
Yes.
And it was big, that one, that particular series. I'm not a rugby person, but that particular series
was big. I remember it.
That was really huge. And just you know, having been in America, it's not a try, it's a touchdown, you know. And so it just came out, and as soon as I saw the effect that it had, then it was just a riff I could work on every week, and I loved that.
It was something that's such a void when you left the show. It was such a void.
Oh, no, there wasn't. Don't you remember that great catchphrase of Dicko's?
No.
That's a ticko from Dicko.
Oh my God, that's vomit. No,
that was his attempt. They obviously workshopped that,
I did
after
not
I was
see big
gone.
flashing lights behind him like he'd had for touchdown because that was going off. And if the guys got a touchdown, they knew they were pretty
I
safe.
know, and this series, our Idol Archives, that's something that I'm hearing from all of them, just how important it was and how much it was spoken about, and that it's been great catching up with them, and I can't wait to catch up with the next lot of 10 with when Katie's able to put her head on it, but. It's just it's lovely catching up with them. It really has been fantastic. And Ben McKenzie, that was an incredible episode, hearing about the he was 16 and he hadn't come out, and his own personal confusion, and talking about he was beaten up on the street one night and was ashamed to even tell anybody, and I knew that he was singing with incredible feeling back then, but I didn't know why. I had no
Yeah.
idea. Now I know why. In the fullness of time, I understand why he was singing with so much feeling, because he was really feeling a lot.
Did you get, I mean, I know I'm going over time here, but did you get emotionally attached to people? Because you just
Absolutely.
naturally would, wouldn't you?
Yes, you do. And again, as I say, going through these first 10 that we did, every one of them was somebody that I'm emotionally attached to in some way. And I look at, because Katie and I sort of sift through the ideas, and I normally go to the ones that I'm interested in more,
Yeah.
or but that's not to say that I mean I would like to do one for the series that I wasn't on, with the guy that won it, the New Zealander guy.
Oh, yeah, Stan Walker?
Stan, I'd like to do one with Stan, because I think
Yeah.
Stan's incredible,
He's an
and
amazing singer.
he's an amazing singer.
Yeah.
And even though it wasn't a series I did, I'd really like to meet him. So that's one that I'm going to pitch at Katie at some point. But Katie's the producer, and in the end, it's the ones that she can wrangle that I do.
So you're not even the boss.
No, I turn up like I'm him with you. I just say, yeah, turn it on, record. Okay, thanks, see ya. And then she does all the rest.
Last question was, if Mark could pick one more song to listen to in his life, what would it be?
Blue by Joni Mitchell, or The River by Joni Mitchell.
Wow.
And maybe even The River by Herbie Hancock, where he did his version of The River. I just love the Herbie Hancock record of Joni's songs. That's genius as well. But no, Joni, and I'm absolutely loving Taylor Swift's 2 new records.
Oh, wow. Good
I
on
just
you.
am blown away by them. I mean, they remind me of a record that I made with Mila Jovovich. The record that I made with Mila Jovovich in '94, which was the thing I took from that management company. When I left that management company, I had found Mila,
Yeah.
and
It's got to be satisfying.
In that year, and we made this most extraordinary record, which did well on the, what were they called then? There was a thing called the alternative charts or something or other.
Right. Yeah.
But in those days in America, but it was like folklore, and there's unfortunately it's not on. There's only our single is online, which is called The Gentleman Who Fell, Mila Jovovich. It's beautiful, but it's got that whole Taylor Swift thing, and we did it 25 years ago, where we did that kind of folkloric but kind of groovy feel. I just love her records. They're just fantastic.
A final question from me. Are you still working with anyone in the music industry? Are you still looking for talent? Not necessarily.
Really, I'm advising some people,
Right.
and but only at an advice level, and just giving them the benefit of my experience and my insight, and kind of but I don't want to be in business really anymore, except in at the level of the story that I've written. That's the thing That's the thing that I'm into. I'm into this story.
When it's completed, please let me know. Shoot it
No
over. We'll
worries.
promote it here on the page, and it'll be fantastic. Mark, let me take this opportunity to say the largest of largest thank yous for coming on. You
Good
are
on you.
an absolute Aussie superstar, and to get someone like you on the show not only is great for the show that I'm running as a bit of a hobby because of my
Yep.
love of music and actors and trying to support people during the
Yes.
COVID and so forth. But
Well, this is the way we communicate now.
yeah, and what a great way. There's no way I
It
would
is.
have ever got a studio to go and sit down with you. So this is amazing.
No, it
I
is.
wish
It's
you the
fantastic.
very best. Please let us know when
Likewise
your
to you.
book's out. We'd love to promote it, and we'll do a bit of promo around this. And I wish you the very best
Good on you.
through everything you do. Good on
Happy
you.
New Year to all your listeners and to you as well. Good on
And
you.
now we know where are they now. We now know where Mark is now. Have a
Good
great
on
day, Mark.
you too. Cheers.
Thanks again, mate. Bye
See ya.
bye.
Bye.